From the Citizens Bank studio, welcome to the Ricky Mathews Show, where we celebrate every single day the people across this great state who are working so hard to make this place a better place to live, work, and play. I'm a little under the weather today. I'm on day 5 of COVID. I've weathered it pretty good. Think of a bad cold that doesn't really go away, and some fever and whatever. But today's a lot better. I contracted it while I was up at the camp this past week. Had an absolutely memorable time up at my place up in the Mississippi Delta with my hunting son, Jake Carter. Just had an incredible experience. But Jake had the sniffles, and as it turns out, it was COVID. And my doctors, as for regular listeners know, that I had a pretty severe reaction to the COVID shot. I had a heart arrhythmia that cropped up. In fact, it was a pretty bad one that I ended up in ICU in Destin, and in the process of my heart back to a regular beat. My heart actually stopped in the process for about 7 seconds. And when you look at it on the EKG and you see a flat line, it's a great reminder that we should count our blessings. But when I contracted COVID, my doctors got a little bit aggressive with treating me, hoping that, of course, I wouldn't have a heart arrhythmia again. And I've done really, really well. So I think COVID and flu and all the other aspects of what we have to deal with is part of life today, and we just have to kind of deal with it. And the way I look at it is now I am immune for at least 9 months to a year. So that's the way I look at it. Hey, I want to share a couple of quick quotes with you. I came across these, one from my history book, and it was a quote from Agnes Moorehead, who was a Hollywood actress back in the early 1900s. But she said this: "Fear of life closes off more opportunities for us than fear of death ever does." You know, that's true. I know a lot of people who are so afraid to take that next step, so afraid to take risks. And countless times we learn from others who have taken the risk, it paid off. And I think we should seize the moment, live in the moment, and not let great opportunities pass us by because we fear them. That is for sure. I think Agnes Moorehead was right. And I actually signed up for a social media site called Motivation. And from time to time, they just send out these quotes. And one that came through yesterday said this: "If people are talking behind your back, be happy that you are the one in front." I love that, actually. You know, as a former publisher, I never really worried too much about what people thought. I knew who my core friends were, and I knew the things that I would be focused on were the things that I felt like were important. And if I did my homework and spoke responsibly, I would sleep really good at night knowing that I felt like I was doing the right thing. And a good example of that actually was the last couple of years. You know this, if you're a regular listener, if you pay attention to what I write. I don't get on issues too often with this show. In fact, rarely do I. But every now and then, I do get locked on in a way that I would have when I was publisher of the Sun Herald or the Times-Picayune or the Press Register in Mobile. I lock on because I believe it's right for the community. And one of those was the sort of dust-up we had with coastal Mississippi tourism. What was good about looking back on that, in fact, I just ran across a post that I did recently, and what was good about that is watching how the business community, the Gulf Coast Business Council, the Casino Operators Association, a lot of leaders sort of came to the forefront and created a lot of accountability around that. And I believe, actually, that there was some change in elected positions directly related to what I believe was a lack of leadership on tourism. As a former newspaper publisher, I always believed that shining the light was going to be really, really important, and that it was going to create leadership, and it was going to create, I think, an urgency around people participating in what I call democracy. And the good news is that when you do that, usually good comes from it. And I believe today the effort around coastal Mississippi tourism is as strong as it's ever been. And I got a note yesterday, actually, just yesterday, from my friend Paige Roberts, who's the executive director for the Jackson County Chamber. And she said the commission, this is the tourism commission, she actually serves as a member of the commission. She said the commission meetings we have now, let me start over. the commission meetings we have now are so upbeat with a true team spirit, and we couldn't have gotten there without pushing from community leaders. And I thought, that was terrific. And, Paige is someone I have so much respect for. She really puts her energy where her mouth is, and she is a terrific leader. And, I'll look back on that and say, there is a powerful lubrication to change that comes from pain. Sometimes we have to go through rough spots to get to a better place. And I think that's what has happened with Coastal Mississippi Tourism. And so with that said, I'm really pleased that my new friend, someone that I have watched very closely since she joined Coastal Mississippi Tourism as its CEO, my good friend, Judy Young, is going to be joining me today. So Judy, how you doing?
Doing great. I'm glad that you're on the mend. That's a tough slog. So almost over that.
It's life. we all have to deal with it. And it's whether it's the flu or COVID or whatever. Certainly, if someone has a lot of pre-existing conditions, they've really got to pay close attention. And in my case, with that heart arrhythmia, I have to pay close attention. But yeah, I appreciate it. I'm definitely on the mend. And for people who can't see, who are listening on the radio, people on the YouTube audience and Facebook and on SuperTalk TV can see this. But you have a beautiful Christmas tree in your background, and I've commented about how clean your desk was. But then you pointed out that what we can't see is you have a lot of activities on your actual desk. But it's a beautiful time of the year, isn't it? I mean, we can reflect right now, can't we?
It is. It's amazing, and I get to experience such great. I mean, my commute is stellar. I know I love driving down 90, coming to work, and seeing the schooners with all their Christmas lights on. So I come to work in the dark and I go home in the dark. So they're always on, and it's just lovely. I really am very fortunate.
Well, that tells me as a leader, you're burning the midnight oil, which is a good thing. And, we have to be focused. I'm thrilled that we get a chance to reflect. I'm thrilled that we live in coastal Mississippi. I posted a photo this morning on the Ricky Mathews Facebook page, but it was the sun coming up over the Beau Rivage from the perspective of Biloxi Bay. It was incredible. And I'm lucky to live on Back Bay, but no sunrise or no sunset is the same. They're all miraculous. They're all incredible. Every day brings a new view. And I pointed out actually that, we may be the king of sunrises and sunsets for the world. At least that's my view on it. But it's a gorgeous time of the year, isn't it?
It's stellar. I've had such a great time and great experiences. I was judging the Christmas boat parade, and there was this really cool low cloud that was kind of hovering halfway up on the Beau Rivage. And so it was like reflecting off the water through the cloud. It was absolutely incredible.
So Judy, this is you've joined me before, but this is literally the first time that we're going to have a full show together. And I thought we'd take a step back a little bit and talk about your 39 years of experience and what you were doing before you actually landed in coastal Mississippi. And I think it would be a good review. I mean, you came with tremendous experience. You came into a situation that needed transformational leadership. You've seen that on the commission, both with your current board chairman and your most immediate past chairman, and we'll get into some of that as well. But let's talk about where you grew up.
Well, I grew up in Central Texas in a German community that was founded by a German prince, and it was an idyllic childhood in a community steeped in tradition and active citizenry. Would be what my second grade teacher, the first female mayor of my community in the 70s, told me. Judy, if you want anything to be fabulous, it's going to take active citizenry. Sometimes that's great, sometimes that's annoying, and sometimes you just need to go to the bakery.
What beautiful advice. And by the way, to be a woman mayor back in the 1970s, she must have had a strong will.
She was fantastic. Mrs. Naglin, her family owns the oldest German bakery in Texas, and she was your typical double knit pant type perm second grade teacher. She taught economics in second grade. She came up with this crazy thing with Post-it notes. And so if you were good and you did different things, she kept score on a poster board, and you would have Post-it notes, and she would create like a community of vendors, and you would get to spend your Post-it notes.
Wow. That's so interesting. Hey, listen, when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with the CEO of Coastal Mississippi Tourism, Judy Young, and we're going to talk a little bit about growing up in Texas. And she had a pretty incredible career in Texas in the tourism arena eventually, and then decided to join us here in Coastal Mississippi. But we'll pick it up from right there when we come back on the other side. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. I have my friend Judy Young, who's the CEO of Coastal Mississippi Tourism, with me today. And we're kind of taking a step back a little bit and getting to know, where she grew up and her incredible experience in tourism before she actually joined us here in Coastal Mississippi. So you grew up in that small town, and the mayor there, a woman mayor in the 70s, inspired you. When did you know that tourism might be something that you would make a career out of?
When I was in elementary school, they asked that, and I wrote I would be a travel agent or an advertising exec. And so it was somewhat destiny, but my mom and dad, there's a beautiful river in my town, and my mom couldn't swim, and she was very worried about me as a toddler. So she entered me into swim lessons, and that kind of launched my love of sports and travel. I've traveled all over the world and all over the country with competitive swimming. And my claim to fame is that I was selected by LBJ to christen the pool at the state park in Fredericksburg because I was the youngest age group swimmer in the country at the age of 3.
Wow. That's actually a young age to be involved in that way. It's competitive swimming. I have friends who have been involved in competitive swimming, and my granddaughter Riley is involved now. And boy, it's gotten extremely competitive over the years, hasn't it?
It has, but the great thing about that skill and sport is that no one sits the bench.
Yeah,
everybody plays. Everybody swims. There's an age group for everyone and every skill level. So I liked it because it was inclusive, and had a fabulous mentor that stuck with me for 22 years of competitive life. So
wow, that's incredible. I know what that does as well to make you physically fit and able to sort of conquer the world, but to have swam competitively for that long, wow, that's an incredible number of years, and it helps in your adulthood to understand what it means to live a healthy lifestyle, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It really was the foundation for most of life lessons, and meeting an amazing group of people. I had some very good friends that couldn't hear, were deaf. And so my dad and some people rigged up a way for them to have a light that would strobe underneath the starting blocks so that they could, compete. So ingenuity and really inclusivity, just having that opportunity. And I traveled as a very young person, really all over the country. I had so much fun in a Volkswagen pop-up camper.
Wow. That's cool. But it's interesting. I often say, and we have conversations about this on my show all the time with guests, that whether it's travel around the United States or even abroad, that perspective is really important when you're sort of centering your attention back to Coastal Mississippi and saying, okay, where do we stand and how do we compare and what can we learn from other areas? Perspective is really powerful, especially when you work in tourism, isn't it?
It certainly is. When I travel now, I do crazy things like take pictures of hanging baskets and street signs. And, oh, look, they have stars in the sidewalk, or some very sophisticated manhole covers that have QR codes on them. So when I come home and I look through my photos, it's a little bit different than other people's travel photos. But for me, travel is the most important education that also enables you to build some very authentic memories and friendships.
So Judy, you said you were inspired early in your life through your travels, but you entered into the tourism career and you never really looked back, did you?
No, I didn't. I started out working in attractions, and then I just moved on from there. I worked in the retail side for American Express Travel Services. That was a lot of fun. And then one of my mentors had been the president of our chamber down the street, 2 houses away. And he and my mom decided that I needed to not travel so much and be home. And so the bureau director's job came up, and the next thing I know, I had an interview. And it kind of moved on from there. I mean, what else? I can't imagine doing anything else where you get to, your career is to brag about your community, brag about your destination, help to build and secure and preserve the heritage and culture and arts. It's a great industry.
Hey, listen, it's interesting that you mentioned American Express Services. My wife, Ann, met a woman over 30 years ago who works for American Express Travel side, and she still works with that same woman today when we travel abroad. I don't know what they built there, but it's special.
It is special. It's definitely a culture for service. You got to have a heart for service and troubleshooting. And it really taught me that there is above and beyond. There is a work ethic that requires you to get up at 3:00 in the morning to upgrade your client, because that's the 24-hour cutoff to get to business class or help them maneuver through. I still have probably 3 or 4 corporate clients that I don't even work for American Express anymore, but I still help them and their families. They are all at Aramco in the Middle East, and it's a combination of fun experiences and an enormous amount of troubleshooting.
I think you're right about that. And the troubleshooting, what's at the core of that is a true commitment to customer service. And you can't fake that, because the results speak for themselves. You know, when there are challenges, like one of the things when we travel, diving is a really big deal for us. You know, we want to be able to dive, and we don't want to have to drive a long way. And usually we're able to find a resort that includes diving as part of the deal. And so this woman we work with at American Express doesn't just know from what she's read about this. In most cases, she's actually been to these places, or she has multiple clients that have been to these places that have dealt with it. That's what happens when you do it for over 30 years. You build up all of this, intellectual knowledge, and institutional knowledge that you can bring to every conversation. But I can see how doing that, having done that and experienced that, can help sort of establish the kind of high standards that you would have in your day-to-day tourism world. What a great sort of foundation to lay.
It's always interesting for me, because I was fortunate enough to grow up in the industry. So outside of being a CPA or finance, I've done every position in a bureau on both sides of the table, as well as attractions. And so I have a great classmate, and she was the COO of Schlitterbahn, which was the largest water park company in the world. And it was founded in our small community. And I mean, for decades, we'd walk the park with folks from Southern Living and the Discovery Channel and this and that. And I can tell you that she never walked by a piece of trash without stopping and picking it up and putting it away. And she knew everyone's name in the park that worked there, some of the longtime customers, and she always made time for them. And that really left a lasting impression on me that no matter how far up the ladder you are, you're not too far up to not take care of your folks. So care and keeping is very important.
Well, look, you were on the board of directors for the Texas Tourism Industry Association, the largest such organization like that in the United States. You were on the Governor's Tourism Advisory Council, eventually serving as its chair, and a lot of in between. You've dealt with it all. You obviously experienced catastrophic floods and the pandemic, and you have a sense of what it means to be resilient in the tourism industry. But when you came here in the wake of, Katrina and the pandemic and all of that, you felt like you could sort of relate in some ways to what we've experienced and what resiliency really looks like in tourism, didn't you?
I did. It was one of the elements that really attracted my husband and I to the area. He is from Mississippi, so that was number one. But having a destination with as much dynamic attractions, as many as we have, that is also kind of generationally anchored with folks that aren't afraid to do the work. And, it goes back to that second grade teacher. Active citizenry is, it's a double-edged sword, but it's the best kind. Everyone's got an opinion, everyone's very passionate, but that's what moves the needle.
Yeah, it is. When we come back, we'll continue this part of the conversation, and then we'll remind you, what is coastal Mississippi tourism for people who hear that term a lot but don't really know what it is. We'll remind you of some of the history as it relates to that. And we'll continue the conversation with the CEO of Coastal Mississippi Tourism, Judy Young. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. I have my friend, the CEO of Coastal Mississippi Tourism, Judy Young. And I just mentioned that after Hurricane Katrina, I had the honor of chairing the tourism effort for the Governor's Commission on Recovery, Rebuilding, and Renewal. And we made a bunch of recommendations. One of the most important things, incidentally, we did coming out of the storm was to develop sort of an economic model and involve hundreds of people in the recovery effort so that we could begin to restore some faith with casino owners and others that there's going to be a here to rebuild in. And so, we focused a lot, for example, on getting land-based gaming, getting that legislation changed, and the rest is kind of history. But one of the major recommendations that we made was to create a regional tourism effort for Hancock, Jackson, and Harrison County. And what's interesting is when you develop a piece of legislation, it's never perfect the first time. I think there's always some tweaks that we can make to improve it. But the fact that it took us a little time, but eventually we got good commitment from leaders that we needed to do this. We formed the organization, and now that's the organization we have today called Coastal Mississippi Tourism. And we'll get into specifically what that organization is and what it's all about. But Judy Young is the current CEO of Coastal Mississippi Tourism, and by all accounts, she's doing a terrific job. Has built a strong team, has a very supported board of commissioners. I have watched Judy, frankly, as the board of commissioners has found what its role should be, coming from more of a micromanaging organization to one that provides oversight and direction and enables you to sort of lead your team. But since you landed here, you have built a really strong team, haven't you?
I have. I've been fortunate to have the board of commissioners truly enable the organization to evolve to the level that we have it at now. And I was not sure that was going to be smooth or easy. And there were some challenges, but great mentorship. I mean, I stepped in the door and got exposure to Jerry St. Pei, to Rusty David, to Jimmy Ladner. I mean, generational folks who've made enormous impacts that said, we're going to give you the time to take us to the next step. It's only been a destination management organization for a decade. So it's a fairly young organization in that sphere.
Yeah.
So I think it's just an evolutionary process. And we really have, I'm very excited about my team. They're all so smart and so talented. And it's so great because I can just get out of the way. And they can thrive and they can grow and they can bloom and they have a lot of pride as well. They're awesome.
Well, I think you're right. A decade is young in a lot of respects, and we had steps to take as everyone began to, from elected officials to commission members to members of the staff even, and the role that you're playing with the organization. We had to come to understand what is the right mix of leadership and responsibility and accountability and roles and responsibilities. That all was kind of tested along the way. I saw good leadership from boards of supervisors, especially on the Hancock and Jackson County side. Eventually, we got that on the Harrison County side. I saw, Greg Cronin came in at a terrific time to be the chairman. I mentioned him. And Jimmy Ladner, I had the opportunity to visit with him a little bit over at the live remote we had at Town Green during Cruising the Coast, and he was so positive and big smiles and excited about where you guys are. And you were there at the time, so I could see that the chemistry was terrific. But sometimes you have to go through a little bit of a rough spot to find peace. There's a lot of trials and tribulations to finding success. And we're in a really good spot right now, aren't we?
We're in a great spot. The Board of Commissioners is very diverse and really working hard to take on the bigger objectives. And that's very important because as a destination, we really have to focus a good bit on where we're going to go and how we're going to evolve and what elements we're going to put in place to be sustainable, what parts of the tourism product we're missing in a big way. And so having that kind of vision and foresight and the connections and vested level in the community that the Board of Commissioners has is going to help us get there.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. Hey, so let's take a step back as it relates to coastal Mississippi tourism, and what's your elevator speech on what this organization does, and kind of give a sense of what that's all about.
Well, coastal Mississippi drives revenue, new revenue. We import wealth into the community by increasing visitation year-round to a stable product that enables every single person in a household. Currently, they save over $700 a person in taxes. But bigger than that is the import of wealth is $2.7 billion. Those are new dollars. It's not a dollar you get paid at an entity that you work for and then you spend it within the community at a grocery store. This is dollars from outside the community that get spent in the community. So new dollars circulating. That's the kind of economic development that's kind of hard to put your head around because it's thousands of front doors, not just one front door. So it's a little bit out there, but it supports over 27,000 jobs for our friends and neighbors. So that's an enormous number, both in employment and in spend and in taxes. We're more than a third of the state's tourism product. So our marketing, promotions, and sales efforts, they're the constant. I always like to say it's like Ford, right? Ford Motor Company has a national campaign. So that's Visit USA. And then the state and southern states Ford has another campaign. So that's Mississippi Tourism Association, Visit Mississippi. And then you move down to regional and local, and it's our job to get them here. And it's our stakeholders' job to close the sale and service it. So we sell a product that thousands of people fulfill.
So explain where the money comes from.
The money that funds coastal Mississippi is generated by a tax that is on lodging entities. It's at 3%. Actually, for us, it's 2.25%, and 2.75% goes to the Coliseum for debt service for the expansion. And so that's how we get funded. We also get funded through currently several different other grants that come from the state and the federal government.
And you've actually done really well as it relates to the grant side of this, haven't you?
We've done quite well. It's been an education in itself, the grant process and the grant rules and procurement and reporting, and that's a moving target every month. But we have done really well. We have a great internal team that really has some experience at that and does a good job. And the legislature's been so supportive and so kind and so gracious as I wade my way through a new political system. They've been really, really gracious in some of my questions that I'm like, I don't really know exactly what that is, because I don't call it that from where I was before, but the ARPA funds are a huge influx right now, good through 2025, and we're rocking. We have our organic is up over 33% just since we got the first round, and I don't see it stopping.
Yeah, that's terrific. Actually, I have a digital media background, so I can appreciate what you mean when you say organic is up 30%. Really, really important. Organic as opposed to paid, so you create all kinds of possibilities out there that people can interact with, and then they choose to interact it without you having to pay for that interaction. That's organic. Really, really important for an organization like Coastal Mississippi Tourism. What's unique about Coastal Mississippi, and it's been interesting because, sometimes looking back, even before we formed Coastal Mississippi Tourism, there would be naysayers that would want to compare our market based on, compare our market to other markets based on, for example, population, for example. There's really not a market like ours in the entire United States when you think about the casinos that are here and the amount of revenue that they're generating, the amount of tourists that come to a market like ours. We kind of stand alone in a lot of ways. I mean, even though there's been a tremendous proliferation of gaming, I think the number of gaming jurisdictions across the United States now have surpassed 40, somewhere in that range. The competition is intense, but the casinos still perform really well. And the way I see Coastal Mississippi Tourism is like you guys are sort of creating sort of the branding umbrella that everything can fit within so that we can get economies of scale with our marketing dollars. There really isn't another market like ours. I tell you what we'll do. We'll come back on the other side and let you talk about how unique this market is as we continue our conversation with the CEO of Coastal Mississippi Tourism, Judy Young. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show from the Citizens Bank studio, and I have my friend Judy Young, the CEO of Coastal Mississippi Tourism. I'm a little under the weather on the tail end of a COVID experience, but I'm doing great. Sound a little hoarse, but I'm doing fantastic. Judy, I've said this many times, what makes Coastal Mississippi so special is that we're a strong region, but what we really are is a collection of small communities, each with its own special sense of place. So whether you're in Bay St. Louis or Ocean Springs, the synergy that exists between these communities, what we've focused so hard on after Hurricane Katrina to rebuild, I mean, that is on steroids today. When people experience those and they're encouraged from Bay St. Louis to go check out Waveland, and from Bay St. Louis to drive over to Ocean Springs, or Ocean Springs to say, go check out the quaint little Moss Point or see what's going on in downtown Pascagoula. The way these communities connect together, they create a destination in and of themselves without even getting into all the other stuff, the beach and the casinos and the golf and the great eating and all the things that come with that. But this is a unique market. It's hard to compare it with any other market, isn't it?
It is. It's very dynamic, and there are so many different facets and traditions and cultures within the three counties. But the thing that a visitor they don't recognize the city limit signs. They don't recognize the county. They don't recognize that at all. They're just here for the experience. And other places have a beach, other places have casinos, all of those things. But the thing that we have that I've not encountered anywhere else, and I have traveled all over the world, is the authentic hospitality that you experience in coastal Mississippi from nearly every walk of life. I mean, some people can have it with their, services within their casinos or their services at their attraction. But I mean, you're going to get it at the gas station. You're going to get it at the grocery store. I mean, the other day, someone said, well, we're going to change your windshield wipers out, love. And I was like, okay.
Is that what you were referring to in terms of endearment?
I am. I love it. It's I try to secret shop nearly every weekend wherever we go to explore or to eat or experience. And there are so many terms of endearment. I had a winter northern folks come down, and I was eating breakfast next to them, and the wonderful wait staff said, "Here's your bottomless mimosa, honey." And she kind of looked up like, "Who are you talking to?" And her husband just started laughing. And so we started talking afterwards. And I mean, it's just that level of authenticity. And someone else explained it to me as, if you're meeting someone in a restaurant or a bar and you're all having a conversation with a visitor, and someone from here invites you to meet them for Sunday dinner, they mean it. I mean, it's an authentic invitation. And that is not common at all, even throughout the South, but it is consistent in our 3 counties. So the challenge will be, will the next several generations also embrace the terms of endearment?
Yeah, gosh, that's a really good point. How do we keep that alive generationally? To some extent, and I talk about it all the time because I think it's what is in the heart of Mississippians as a general rule. It's certainly true here on the coast, but I think it's true. I think it's a byproduct of having to be resilient. When you get hit by the worst natural disaster in American history, having to come back from that gives you a more chronic appreciation for not only your place, your sense of place, but the people around you and the people who visit here. And that, I think, unfortunately, it's not a matter of if, but it's when we'll get hit again. And I think when you have to deal with that on a periodic basis, maybe every 10, maybe 15, 20 years, I think we're going to bounce back better because we rebuilt infrastructure and all the things that we rebuilt after the storm. But it just, I don't know, it creates in us chronic appreciation for this place. And that then, is what people see and they feel it. And as you point out, you can't always put it in words. I think terms of endearment is a great way to say it, but we can't always put it in words. We just know that it's the secret sauce. It's the thing that people are attracted to and makes them want to come back here. And by the way, when you consider that over 80% of the people who come here in their cars, they have choices to go to other places, don't they?
They do. They're, when the rest of the country opened up, it was a new game. So the competitive sets and everyone around us, all those attractions, they're going after everyone hard for visitation. And, one of them may have a casino and one of them may have a beach. One of them, may have an art gallery, but do they have the artists' families, generations of them here still involved? I just think it's, I think that Mississippi in general has a fighting spirit. And I think that's what makes the difference, and the pride. And coastal Mississippi is going to be there every day, beating the drum and making a positive impact. November, we had 51 articles with 19,000 journalists and $960,000 in value.
Wow.
So we got to keep our head down and get the work done.
Well, Judy Young, CEO of Coastal Mississippi Tourism, we've only just begun our conversation. I can't wait to come back in the next month or so, and we'll just talk about your current strategy and where you are. And we'll continue the conversation because we both share a love for this place and the terms of endearment that we're so very much aware of. It's been a pleasure. Happy holidays to you, my friend.
Thank you. Have a great holiday.
You bet. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.